All right. The following interview was conducted with Robert Stacke on behalf of the Public History 300 Classes Oral History Project for the Augsburg College Archives. It took place on March 14th, 2015 at Augsburg College. The interviewer is Caitlin Crowley. So, you can just state your background and education and the dates.
Okay, so my background is I went to Augsburg College, 66 to 70, 71, and got my bachelor's degree in music, and then came back, did music education for 1971, and then taught for a bunch of years, went to St. Thomas, got my master's, taught for a bunch of years, and then went to the U and got my doctorate. And in between, I always played drums and sometimes stopped teaching and played drums at different places in Maracaibo and symphony orchestra and Chanhassen Dinner Theater. But I've always liked to teach, so that's my background. Always music.
Tell me about your time as a student at Augsburg.
It was a fun time. I had a good time.
What drew you to study at Augsburg?
The music program. I went to a camp at Big Sandy Lake, a music camp, and when I was in 8th grade, one of the faculty members was an Augsburg pianist. We did Rhapsody in Blue, and from then on, I was coming to Augsburg. What
was Augsburg like when you went there? Do you remember the name of the president of the college or some of your professors' names?
Oh, sure, of course. Charlie Anderson was the president of the college, and he was a great guy, and Oscar Anderson, excuse me, and he was very personable, always super engaged with the students, kind of was the forefront of a lot of different issues. Then it was more gender issues than racial issues, but he was always in the forefront trying to get more equality between men and women. Wonderful sense of humor, the president. Could raise money, he loved the arts. He was just a fantastic guy, and I had a lot of interaction with him and totally enjoyed him. The school then, it was a tumultuous time during the 60s. And I think Augsburg really fared well. It was always a place of good values and ideals and charging ahead, which they did a lot.
Did your family background draw you to Augsburg College? I know a lot of people who went to Augsburg were Norwegian or Lutheran in background.
No, none of that. No, my mother's from Australia. My dad was a merchant sailor, met her in Australia, went back to sea. She came over here after 2 years of not seeing him, and they got married. And I'm the son of a sailor. So, yeah, my heritage is Irish Australian.
Not at all Norwegian or Lutheran.
Absolutely, not even close.
Yeah. So you graduated with a degree in music education. Mm-hmm. What kinds of classes did you take?
Basically the same thing that we have the students do now. You have your core curriculum of theory, music history, performance studies, and playing an ensemble. And then all the gen eds, just history. And I had Don Gustafson, and who I adored.
Was he a history professor?
Yes.
What kind of history did you take?
World history.
World history.
And he just retired last year with me, but he was around a lot longer than I was, and so he was a great guy. So he was a wonderful teacher, and remember him very, very well. We had really dynamic folks. I remember all my English teachers and music teachers and all this sort of thing that we did. And the department, curriculum was for the music department really hasn't changed much. It's standard fare across the world, really, the core curriculum. And I think one of the things that was really interesting here is like jazz was the taboo music in the world, because it was the devil's own music, or you just made it up and everything. So I think one of the better things I did as a student and as a teacher, as we started a jazz band when I was a student here. It wasn't really sanctioned, so we had to practice in the middle of the night. And we'd find ways into the music building, which was an old church in those days, to practice. Wrote our own music, which was fantastic. It was one of those things that was forced on us because there was no budget for music. And so we wrote our own, and then the band director at the time, Mayo Savold, really championed us and let us perform on the band concerts. So we started kind of the jazz program here. And then and some singers like we have with our jive or gospel praise singers, and Jim Lindstrom was a choir member, and he did the vocal and I did the instrumental. And then when I came back, we put it all back together again, and had built it. I think really, I'm very proud of the jazz program here.
Wow. Yeah. What were some of those people's names? Just so I couldn't hear.
Oh, the band director was Mayo Savold.
Mayo.
Yeah, Mayo Savold.
Mayo Savold.
And the actual rehearsal room is named after him. And Leland Saturn was the department chair and choir director and theory teacher. Jim Johnson was the one I said that played at that music camp. So, small group of people, but very influential on so many of us.
So you think slowly people started to accept jazz a little bit more as a valid form of music at Augsburg?
Yeah, it took forever. Like when I first started here to get jazz history, it took 4 times through academic affairs committee because they couldn't see how that was diverse or worthwhile music.
Yeah.
And I'm talking 25 years ago, so all those people are long since not here, but it was a real battle to get that type of music in a curriculum.
So was that difficult for you as far as study abroad programs too, if related to jazz?
No, by then things changed really quickly.
Okay.
And it's never been a barrier. In fact, it's been a plus now.
Okay, great.
But we feel that we forged ahead. Like, for instance, there was this thing called the Minnesota Music Educators Association, and I was president of the Jazz Association of it. Well, they let me come in, but I couldn't vote because of jazz wasn't a legitimate music.
Oh, man. Yikes.
I mean, for real. I mean, it was like, no, you can come, but you can't vote because you're a jazz musician.
Jeez.
I know.
You're a citizen without suffrage.
That's right. Oh yeah, it was really bad. Some racial things too, just awful because they associate jazz with African Americans, and yeah, we really battled a long time with different things too.
Do you think that the college being diversified had anything to do with jazz being slowly accepted?
No, I think it's just the times. And we were always a diverse campus, not to the extent we are now, but it would reflect the city pretty well. Okay. It wasn't a place where you just came and it was just all Norwegians or white folks.
Right.
There is a nice, and then even back then we really wanted to have more diversity. I remember always saying that, we should just look across the freeway here and groups of people and say we should be recruiting within our area, and of course we do now. And it was always a goal of Augsburg to become part of the city and to show the diversity of the city. So even back then, way back then.
So has Augsburg's music program always worked with people around the neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think we did, at least in my experiences. We would bring in guest artists like we have down here today, just people from Cuba practicing, and over at the Cedar Cultural Center with all the Somali population. Back then it was more African American jazz musician that we had contact with, and we'd bring in, and some of the great players. And but I think we've always reflected our community well. Yeah, I'm proud of this place.
Yeah. Did you meet anyone at Augsburg that changed your life?
Yeah, my wife.
Okay. You should tell me about how did you meet your wife here?
In band.
In band?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was a drummer too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, we met in band. I was a couple of years older, and she right out here in the corner, right outside my office, yeah.
Oh.
So, and then we just dated and got married the first weekend after graduation.
Wow. And how long have you been married now?
40 years, something.
40 something?
Yes.
So, you already told me a little bit about this, but can you tell me how Augsburg was different than it is now?
You know, that's a searching question, because I've always just felt part of a continuum here, and I think it's evolved in so many good directions, faster than a lot of things have evolved. And I've always found it a place of values within having people, when I recruit and when I went here and when I brag about school, they said, well, it's a Lutheran school. And I said, yes, and we are a Lutheran school, but everybody feels welcome here. And I would say, even in our chapel, I said, yeah, we have religious ceremonies, chapel, but I don't care. It's about values more than it is about a certain denomination or a certain religion. I said everybody should feel welcome in our chapel. The value system of Augsburg was wonderful when I went here. I mean, people were protected. When I just remember with people partying too much or getting drunk or whatever, they take care of them. It wasn't like, oh, here's a mark, let's, whatever. And no, people really, for the most part, took care of each other. And same thing with the social issues. If somebody was being bullied or racially discriminated against, I always felt the community came together and said, no, we're not going to tolerate that. And I think the continuum is here. And I think with curriculum, it's the same thing. With the honors program becoming so prominent and such a good thing here at Augsburg, there always was something like that. But with the honors program, I think it was continuum of getting a diverse body of students in, and also our core students that really glommed onto different things. It hasn't changed that much. It's changed with the time. It hasn't been stuck in the past.
Right.
So it's a nice continuum.
Great. Oh, and you did talk about this a little bit too. What was the diversity on campus like compared to now?
Oh, it was less, of course.
Right.
Because the Twin Cities was a lot less diverse. And so, but again, I'll go back and say that I think we always reflected the community. And so the diversity, it was here, it wasn't probably the big topic all the time saying, is a part of our mission statement, but was just part of us. I remember Malcolm X when he was assassinated and Martin Luther King. I mean, that was huge impact on Augsburg community, and saying this is a horrible thing to happen, and people banding together and supporting the African American here and understanding or trying to understand what the situation was, and so yes, it's always been very welcoming in a diverse population, and there was a lot of things too with Native Americans back then too, where we try to be more inclusive with the Native American population.
Right.
And again, they were just blocks away, so.
Right.
Yeah. And
did Native Americans sort of, that community became more prominent than while you were at Augsburg?
I think recognized.
Okay.
I don't remember if they were actively recruited or anything like that, but I think, again, our social services and our outreach programs, I think they reached out to the Native American population because that was one of the prominent non-white populations at the time.
Okay.
And the immigrants, of course, were more Norwegian than they were Somali or East African. So I think that's really interesting that this neighborhood has always been an immigrant neighborhood, and now it's East Africa rather than Scandinavia. But it's really cool.
Yeah, that is. I had no idea that there was a huge Norwegian population here.
Oh, around here? Oh, yeah. And musically, it was all these fiddle players and.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you have the fiddle playing in school or not?
No, it was mostly just in the community. You'd get all these Norwegian dancers and bands and all that sort of thing around. And
That's cool.
it was. And then, yeah, then we had, the Norwegian roots were much more prominent then because I think more Norwegians went here. But then we had lutefisk at Christmas. We had all that stuff they'd have in the commons. And, you know, you might want to gag, but it was still there. And so the Lutheran thing was big. And then, but still very encompassing of the community.
So you think the changes that have happened to Augsburg are positive or negative?
Oh, I think they're positive. I think, I mean, it just, people are people. And if you're thinking of the diversity issue, it shouldn't matter. It just, everybody should feel welcome here. And I think they do. And I think that's very important. I think academically, we go in cycles. And we need to concentrate that this is a college of higher education and really continue to strive to have excellent academic programs. Without that, I think everything else suffers and goes away. And I think there has to be something that's academically rigorous all the time so people feel proud of the degree they get, not just the social or the wealth, the outreach programs we have. It has to be academically very proud too.
So do you guys have several different majors in the music department?
Sure, we have 5.
5? And has that been like that since you've... Okay.
No.
Which ones were added?
When I was here, it was basically music education and a BA, just a BA. It was kind of performances, BA. And since, with me as chair, we added music business. Music education became very strong. Music therapy was added with Roberta Kagan, which is quite a while ago. I think we're going on the 40th anniversary of music therapy. So we have 5 degree programs. We have a BA, a degree in performance, a degree in music education, a degree in business, and a degree in did I say education or yeah.
Yeah,
So we have 5.
Okay. And you said as chair you helped add several of those?
Yeah, the business one for sure.
Business one. Great.
And our curriculum is really diversified in that we have a big jazz studies program. We have small combo groups that celebrate contemporary music or rock, which that I put in. I'm very proud of that because I think music education should encompass not just your classical or band geeks.
Right.
You know, and I mean band geeks with affection because I'm the band director or was. But I mean, music education has to accompany everybody and all styles, and you can teach all those elements of music in a non-traditional way.
Okay, so you helped add a lot of smaller bands.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So can you name a couple of those again? I missed.
Oh, just like contemporary ensembles. We started 3 years ago, which would be rock bands and things like that.
Okay.
And then we have a group now that accompanies a lot of Somali artists over at the Cedar Cultural Center, and it's a mixture of alumni and current Augsburg students. And then as different Somali artists come in, we rehearse with them, put on performances at Augsburg and at the Cedar Culture Center. And now we're starting to branch out and working on a presentation in Chicago and things like that. So it's not for sure, but we're hoping it'll come through.
What's the language barrier like with people who, Somalian population or others?
It's so much fun because you get together and the language becomes somewhat of a challenge, but what's fun about it is that we just talk in music, and they don't read music. They do everything by ear. We're the opposite. We do everything by written. So you're combining musical learning styles plus language barriers. So you're singing back and forth, finding all new ways of communication, and it's a ball. And it's so fun, and it works, and we just laugh about it because it's nobody cares, and language doesn't matter. It comes across really well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just an amazing situation, and culturally, we're so proud of this because you got you got different genders, and which in some of the cultures is a big deal, especially Somali culture, uh, in at the time, and that's breaking down where women are predominantly can sing and they're not ostracized, but because they're singing a song, they can become musicians. So they're groundbreaking in that area. To us, that's just chorus. But as we learned in Cuba, you're not even supposed to play drums in some cultures.
Yeah.
And the same thing was happening in the Somali culture, but that's breaking down. You have all these white folks playing with Somalis, and nobody cares. It's just we're making music, and it's really a fantastic thing. So it's a fusion of cultures and music styles, and we're learning so much from each other.
Are they ever surprised that that these people are interested in their music, or that they're able to play their music?
I think they're delighted. And at first it was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? And as we rehearse and everything, they understand how much we're enjoying the music and want to learn the music, and infusing some of our jazz and R&B lines into their music, which fits perfectly. Because their stuff is like Bob Marley's meets Malaysia, meets East Africa, meets a little bit of R&B and hip hop. It's just this wonderful mixture, creolization of so many art forms, and they're excited about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
It is.
Just want to make sure these are still working. They are. Hooray. Okay. So I apologize, some of these are sort of repeats, but tell me about your time as a professor at Augsburg and the dates.
Yeah, I started here in 1990, and I'm still going. I'm just not full-time anymore. I
Right.
got sick a year ago and had a forcibly, the doc said, you better stop, so I did.
Okay.
And so, but I'm still teaching a class in Cuba, administering a grant, and doing different things here, different projects,
Okay.
and still faculty, but not full-time anymore.
So tell me a little bit about the projects that you're doing now at Augsburg.
A lot of it's what we were just talking about, the Somali connections,
Okay.
where I put bands together for the Somali artists, helping with some music education things with some of the grad students, where we're trying to do a sustainable project with some of our community. In other words, like training people in seminars, maybe classroom setting, and we're talking like high school students, where they learn a skill like stage production. We don't think there's one person from East Africa that is a light person, a sound person, or any type of stage production. So we came up with the idea, and we met with the Minneapolis schools, Bill Green, who used to be superintendent, and we came up with this idea, Steve Herzog, who was in a graduate program, that we train anybody that wants, but really trying to target more the folks that from East Africa, and how to do recording technology, lighting technologies, just be a stage manager, all the things that need to do to put on a production.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be theatrical, it can be a musical production. So they're learning music, they're learning these skills, and hopefully can get employment. So that's what yesterday I did.
Great.
Yeah. And of course, I love my Cuba class.
What brought you to Augsburg to teach? I know that you taught at a couple other places before you taught at Augsburg.
Yeah, I taught public school for almost 17 years, Minneapolis, Bloomington, and Hopkins. And then I was at St. Cloud for a couple of years, and I kept going to school and getting more of my degrees. And I've always wanted to come home, back to Augsburg. So when it opened, and it'd be going down the questions here, when the position opened up, I applied, and it was a part-time position, and I got the job. And then it became a tenure-track position. I had to reapply, go through the whole search process again, kept the job, and been here ever since. Got tenure. So,
Nice.
yes.
Was that a difficult process, or?
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to, it's hard because you have to convince people that you're worthwhile. And that's in a way humiliating, and in another way it's an opportunity. So it's a really hard thing to find that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good process. It's very good because you're judged by your peers, you're judged by the administration and outside folks. So I think it's very fair.
Okay.
And it gives quality education to you guys.
Yeah. How did you become the chair of the music department?
About 14 years ago, the Marilee Klemp was chair. She needed to go back to school, and I was elected and reelected. So.
Do you have to be reelected every how many years?
Yeah, let's see, 6 years.
6 years.
That's how we did it. Yeah.
Okay. So, are you still chair of the music department then?
No.
Who's chair now?
John Schmidt.
John Schmidt.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What responsibilities did you have as chair of the music department?
I think it's really just getting all the ideas, everybody together, and trying to have a democracy where people decide on how to implement their ideas. And the challenge there is, of course, everybody has different ideas, but I think that kind of thing is good. You don't want everybody to agree on one thing, or it's going to be a one-track department.
Right.
So when you have people discussion or feeling very passionately about something, it's great if we can all air it together and come to a nice compromise or conclusion to it. And you assign classes to people. You hire all the adjuncts. And here I would be the main person, but I would always open up to anybody in the faculty that wanted input.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now we have a master. That's another thing I did with Roberta Kagan. We put the Masters of Music Therapy in.
Okay.
And that's another degree program we have. So,
is that the only even higher level class you guys have?
Yes.
Or, sorry, degree?
In the music department.
Got
Yes.
it. Okay.
Or music ed, kind of, but it's, yes, in music ed. It's not a master's in music education. It's a master's in education with an emphasis in music.
I see.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, from your experience being a teacher, what do you think makes Augsburg unique?
I think we can be really progressive, and I'm proud of our department in that it's progressive in curriculum. That we have your traditional, classical traditional music, which you have to have. It's mandated to get accreditation and everything like that. But at the same time, we celebrate music from everywhere and all styles of music. Mm-hmm. So you can be a classical singer, but at the same time turn around and sing in a rock band or a gospel group or play jazz or play chamber music. We have, I think, an incredibly wide-based curriculum where we celebrate all people's styles and needs.
Nice. And when you were a student, did you feel the same way, or was it different?
Oh, it's very traditional.
Okay.
Yeah, and right down the line. When I was a student, I'm a drummer.
Yeah.
And they had no idea what to do with me because they never had a drum person as a music major in the school.
Right.
And so for recitals and stuff, they had no idea what I was supposed to do.
They didn't know how to test you on anything?
No, it was great. And so I studied with Elliot Fine, who was in the Minnesota Orchestra. Mm-hmm. And so they just said, Bob, go study with him. And I had a lot of chances to play here and show what I could do. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was fun. And now, of course, they can't pull that on me because I'm a drummer. So when I go to the recitals, I know what they're supposed to do.
Did they have you learn any other instruments?
Oh, sure. For music education, you have to have a working knowledge of just about everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did they make you learn how to play everything, or just kind of learn basic knowledge?
Oh, you have to play a little bit of like a brass instrument, like a valve instrument, a trombone. Violin was Yes, we still do that to everybody. You have to have a working knowledge of strings, brass, percussion.
Mm-hmm.
Because how?
Which ones did you learn?
Oh, we did. I did trumpet, violin, clarinet, saxophone, something from each family.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite part about being a teacher?
Oh, the students. Yeah, interacting with the students and trying to help them make their dreams come true and listening to what they think should happen. It's because it's your time now. It's not the future. It's now for you guys. And so, yeah, it's the students. That's what I miss terribly about not teaching every day, is coming in, seeing everybody, and interacting with students. It's actually very sad for me. Very hard.
Well, at least you still get to be here part-time.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really interested in the study abroad trips you've taken too. Obviously, I went on one of those study abroad trips with you. So tell me about your study abroad trips that you've taken.
Oh yeah, I've been really lucky because many years ago, in like 1993, 90 something in there, the dean said, "Bob, you should teach an interim class." And I said, "Yeah, if it's in the Caribbean." They go for it.
Wow.
So we came up with a program through this thing called UMA. Augsburg didn't have as much short-term study abroad then. And so we put together this program in Jamaica. And so it was 21 to 23 days long.
Wow.
And I did that 9 times, I think.
Wow, 9 years in a row?
Every couple of years.
Okay.
So the population, but it was a consortium. It was really our consortium of schools at St. Thomas, St. Kate's, St. Ben's, St. John's, Bethel, and ACTC schools. And I mean, it'd fill overnight.
Wow.
So it was a wonderful program. And we'd study music. We'd go to Bob Marley's recording studio, and we saw a lot of people there, and really fun stuff.
What was the class called?
History of Caribbean Music in Jamaica.
Okay.
Hasn't changed much.
Yeah. But it was a focus on the Jamaican music?
Sure, and more broad than what we did in Cuba, because we had 3 weeks.
Okay.
And so we really probably lots of emphasis on Jamaican music. We learned a lot of music of the different islands and styles of music. I think the big telling thing that we could talk about on our trip was just the recording thing. I think we could do a whole timeline of things that I brought down for people to listen to the music of. I remember first bringing a big boom box with a cassette tape in it, not 8-track, but and a cassette tape, and trying to find power outlets and doing this and that, and then getting the huge speakers and getting it through, and it was an amazing situation. And then those got smaller and better, and then start getting CDs. I mean, we didn't even have CDs when I started doing the Jamaican thing.
Yeah.
And so I got a CD player, and we put the CDs in, and I'd have to bring a big thing of CDs, and because you really couldn't burn them at early times. So I think, and then we went to more phones, and it would be a huge dock for those, and the cords you have to put it in the speaker, and so it was all that, and that was how many years, like 3-4 years ago. And now you just bring your phone and
a portable speaker.
A portable speaker like we used, and there you go. It's fantastic. I really would love to do that visual thing of the first ones that are brought down.
So was that the only place you went, or did you go to other study abroad trips?
The only ones, yes, I led a trip to Northern Ireland where we studied peace and reconciliation, and that was like 6 weeks.
When was that?
2002, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe a little earlier.
Okay.
It's in about 2003 we went to Cuba, so that was my first trip to Cuba, but it was in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2000, something like that.
And what was that like as far as music education, or was it just Was it a music class or a different kind of class?
With emphasis on music. And what was interesting is studying the music of the Troubles between Northern Ireland, Ireland, and England. And it goes back 1,000 years. And I found old ancient books that had the lyrics of hate at the time, and between denominations of the same religion, which nobody could quite understand. And it would go through this whole, and I'm talking about songs hundreds of years old, would start off with the romanticism of a revolution. I mean, we could relate this to Cuban trips. We can read Nicaragua. We did take a group to Nicaragua, and the idealism of revolution, the way you want a great outcome, and then the realities of revolution where people die, and how do you reconcile that? Is it worth it? And where does thuggery come into it? Like we see in so many places now, people start with an idealism, and then just thugs come in and riot and loot, and really could ask them, why are you here? Because it's fun, I mean, yeah. I'm over trying, but there's a lot of that, and I think the thuggery and the same thing is happening in the Middle East. Some of the idealism is good, but then people just go crazy and do horrible things, and the same thing happened with Sandinistas and all that in Cuba. The revolution, the idealism was great, but the reality of killing people. Mm-hmm. And so the music would reflect all that, and then we would go to sites and study what we heard. And then we had a lot of guest speakers. There was a group, I can't remember the name, but they were Northern Ireland, and they had sang a lot of protest songs against the British, and 3 out of the 6 were assassinated for their music. And so I interviewed the people, 3 of them that were left, and then a lot of the study was people of revolution have a lot of music, but the people in charge have very little.
Wow.
And and that's a sweeping generalization, because you can say we have a nationalistic period of wave the flag, country western music, all that sort of thing, and other countries have the same thing. But for that sort of thing at those periods of time, it seems the revolutionaries have a lot more music than the people in charge, because they don't want to admit to something terribly wrong internally. Mm-hmm. When it's a civil war or a revolution. So we studied that.
That sounds like a fabulous trip.
It was, yeah.
I would love to go to Ireland.
Yeah, it's a great place.
So you took a trip, you've been to Ireland, to Cuba, to Jamaica, and you said Nicaragua as well? Was that also a history of Caribbean music class?
No, that was just something I went on with CGE. I didn't take students, but there was some students that we met and worked with. So basically it's been Jamaica, Ireland, and study abroad. And then with our ensembles, we've been all over the world.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to hear about that as well. You've taken trips with the Augsburg bands.
And choirs and orchestras.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about those trips, or where they were, anything you'd like to tell me.
We've really been all over the world. It's fantastic. The band has been to Norway, Ireland, England. And the last trip was to Turkey. The one before that, Romania. And perform. And again, the choir, same thing, China, most of Eastern Europe, all over the world, literally. And it's been fantastic because, again, just like the things we're encountering here, you find that people are all the same. They want to celebrate music. We want to celebrate love. We want to celebrate our lives. We just want to. 99% of the world is quite normal. And we never hear about it. We hear about that 1% that's nuts and abnormal and then destroys things for everybody else. Most of us want the same thing, and just kind of leave us alone to do what we want and live our lives and
play music.
And so I think all those trips are fantastic in that, because we try to interact with student musicians from all those countries. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's been a wonderful thing to be able to go on these trips.
That's wonderful. And I know it's hard to pick a memory, or can you tell me any of your favorite countries, any funny stories or anything?
I think for countries, it's always the unfamiliar I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ones where there's unexpected things going to happen. I think Romania was wonderful that way because it's just coming out of really a dark time. It was one of the last countries to get rid of communism. Mm-hmm. The celebration of life is fantastic. So those type of places. Estonia was the same when we went with the choir. We went in a period where the Russians had really just given them their independence after the fall of the wall and stuff. And in the celebration of independence was fantastic. So I think that sort of thing, for me, it's always the unfamiliar I really like to go towards.
Yeah. How did the study abroad trips differ from the trips that you took with the band?
Non-performance. For me, the study abroad without performance are a lot less stressful. Because you're not worrying about acoustics, you're not worrying about getting horns there, you're not worrying about where the uniforms or the dresses or this or that, and if people are getting sick, I mean, you always care, but it's hard when you lose an instrumentalist, they got to perform, or a singer, so it's a lot less stressful. And but in the other side is that when you have a group of non-performers, you see it in a whole different light and hear it in a whole different light, because I think the non-performers hear music different than the performers.
Right.
It's more of an emotional response than an intellectual, analytical response. And I think it's their honesty to it that I learned so much from you guys and things like that.
So the people who play instruments are more methodical about how they see the other?
I think so, and I'm the same way, because we're so trained that, okay, let's listen to this. This is in tune. Does the melody fit the rhythm? What key is it in? How are they articulating it? Is it accurate? All these things we're trained to do, and we sometimes miss the message of the music.
Right. Would you guys ask, or the teachers ask people more emotional type questions as well as the?
Hi.
Oh, I didn't think you were here. I was going to see if the bus was here. Sorry,
you have a great tour.
Thank you. We will.
I know.
So sorry.
Okay.
This is no. We're just doing an interview thing.
Yeah, I know.
You know, this is my first tour.
On tape already?
Oh, it's on tape
No.
right now.
You know, Peter, this is my first trip without going with you in 20-some years.
I know.
It's really sad. But have a great trip.
What's the trip?
The choir tour.
Oh, have fun.
Yeah, first trip I haven't gone in 20 years.
Oh, where are they going?
Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah.
Do you have any, let's see, tell me about your favorite or one of your favorite memories from a band trip or a study abroad trip? Or both?
I think a lot of it is when people in both things aren't tourists but travelers. And then, like our group that went to Cuba, everybody was trying to understand the culture. We weren't looking at them like we were perpetually in a bus looking at little figurines out there. We tried to become part of their culture or understand the culture, and not being tourists. We were really travelers. And I think that's the best memories of groups like that. I think performance-wise, sometimes you have a magical space, like with Peter and his choir. We were in Estonia. Yes, it was Estonia. We're in an old church, no ceiling, and then we found out, and there was boxes of skulls and bones. And we found out that this is a place that Nazis had murdered and destroyed the church when they were leaving, and then the Russians did the same thing, so this place was just pounded. And they sang a concert that was so emotional, because it was a memory of those people that lost their lives because they just wanted to be free. and they got it coming and going. They got it by the Nazis and they got it by the Russians. So
Wow.
that is an incredible memory to me.
That is really amazing. So, tell me about why you decided to retire.
Oh, I had no intent on retiring. And then I had some heart trouble and had surgery. And they said I better stop and working full time to take care of myself. So that's the gist of it. And been hard because I didn't prepare myself for not being part of Augsburg.
Yeah.
It just happened, like overnight, literally.
Yeah.
So it was, it's been really tough. So, but teaching these classes and being here, doing things like this and stuff.
Right. What year was that? Was that this year that you
This is
became?
a year ago. So it would have been, my last official full-time day was August of 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just been 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And well, you've told me a little bit about this already, a lot about it actually, but tell me about your current musical projects.
Oh, it's really fun. Like I said, I'm working with this theater cultural center in Augsburg, and on these Somali groups that come in, we do performances with them, depending on their needs. Sometimes it's a full band, sometimes it's a smaller group. We have 5 of those that we were doing in the course of this year and a half, so we have 2 left. And musically, I just came from a rehearsal. It's a repertoire orchestra. We're playing Sibelius and Rimsky-Korsakov, so I'm actively playing and traveling as much as I can, but musically keeping very active and playing, and the grant's keeping me really happy here. Yeah.
So do you play usually or do you direct these groups?
These groups for Augsburg I usually direct,
Okay.
or play like auxiliary percussion. We have such fine people here, they should be playing, not me. But like if it's non-Augsburg, then I play.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you applied for a grant to do this?
Yeah, Doris Duke, huge. It's called Building Bridges.
Doris
Duke of
okay.
Duke University and Duke Tobacco.
Okay.
She's the big tobacco baron and trying to do some good with her money, and and so she has all these educational things, and this is to promote Muslim culture through music. And of course, that's a dichotomy because a lot of people think Muslims don't like music. I mean, we're talking about these generalizations. Here's this huge grant that we're doing to promote Muslim culture through music. So, it's proving most folks do like music and things like that. So we got this grant and we wrote it 2 years ago, and the Cedar is the administrator of it and everything, but it's in partnership with Augsburg. So I'm the Augsburg Music Connection.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And just making sure this works. Everything's good still. All right. And this is the final question. What do you consider your legacies at Augsburg as a student, as a professor?
I hope the students remember me well. I think about that. It's like, my peers in my department and my students. And I think sometimes you get an email from 20 years ago and you just go, this is so cool. And then running into my colleagues in the department. I think that's the legacy that I really tried to be a good teacher.
Right.
And people would ask me, why you've taught for 47 years, why do you keep wanting to do it? And I said, because I've never got it right. So it's a wonderful challenge, and that's how I remembered as a good teacher.
Well, thank you so much for doing this oral history with me. I really appreciate it, and your answers were really awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's stop. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but
It was much less. I was nervous for some reason, but
so was I. But once we just start talking, we've talked this so much, it was just natural.
oops.
If it wasn't you, I'd feel really awkward.
Oh no.
Because that would be